unbeknownst to him, in my opinion, there's no greater superhero. Yeah, I don't think he set out to be one, but boy.
Every year, the lives of thousands of Canadians are saved or improved because of organ and tissue transplants. Some individuals live in hope that a donor will one day be found. Others die, simply waiting for a match.
In 2019, more than 3,000 organ transplants were performed in Canada. Approximately 60% came from deceased donors.
Each organ transplant story has two starkly different faces. One miraculous, the other tragic. A story of joy and new hope against one of grieving and loss. Behind these are stories of real people with real families. John Dickhout and Rick Prashoff are among them. The Gifts of Life series peers into both sides of the organ donation story.
June 10th, I believe, was Rick's visit to Welland. And then sometime after that, I was given the green light to travel and specifically to fly, which I hadn't been able to do for a long time while I was sick, just because my heart was in such bad condition and the pressures of flying, etc. So Lynn and I knew the first place we wanted to fly to for a mini vacation was Ottawa. All this overwhelming gratitude that I had, I wanted to get to know more about Adam and to express my gratitude to so many of the people that played a significant role in his life. So through Rick's help and as a guide escort, we visited the Ottawa hospital, and I got to meet some of the nurses that look after Adam in his last days, and they expressed their thanks because I guess they don't, they deal in grief a lot of the time. But one of the nurses mentioned that it was the first time they'd ever met a recipient end result. So I was really glad we did that. We met Dr. Cardinal, who you mentioned earlier, the interventionist who looked after Adam.
I went through the process of purposely wanting to reach out and again share that gratitude first with the staff at Toronto General, where I had my transplant and where they looked after me and brought me back to life. And then after meeting Rick and his family and hearing their story, but those people had played such an important part in Adam's last days and shifting their care for trying to bring him back to looking after his organs, which eventually became one of which became my new heart. So I'm extremely grateful for that and wanted to share some of that joy. And I think, being married to an ICU nurse, and they see a lot of sick people leave their care, but don't get to see the positive results of the fantastic work that they do. So I just want to make sure that we can share that.
And we went to, what was the place where Adam worked?
Cafe Nature at the Canadian Museum of Nature.
Yeah, so we visited the museum, which was great in itself, but we went and met Adam's boss too, which was kind of cool.
I, in my book, talk about my grief where I felt like I was following a viral Facebook there in the waters after a shipwreck. And there was a moment I just wanted to let go of the plank because, you talked about grief earlier and it's just always there. It's just always there. It can surprise you. And it hasn't got no clock on it, So I just wanted to let go and just give up and be with Adam. And Adam, typically Adam, in my dream that night, takes another plank and whacks me over the head. Just whacks me over the head. And it hurt. I remember waking up and that head hurt. And Adam was saying, Dad, live, like choose life, And so that was a message that Adam gave me. It came from my father, actually. I'm writing about him now. He always in university would send us this little note, and at the end he would just PS. He says, "Be not afraid and choose life." And
I love that.
Yeah, he came out of a depression and being in an orphanage and in a foxhole in Italy in the war. So I said, "Oh, yeah, he must have been scared a lot, and he must have been like not choosing life." So he was saying that to me to pass it on, but he was saying it to himself,
Right.
and that's why I think Adam's saying it to me now. Rick, Dad, choose life, be not afraid.
December 25th, 2016. A Tale of Two Christmases. It is the best of days, it is the worst of days. Through the year, for each door unexpectedly and joyously opened, another was suddenly shut. While one family rejoices at previously undreamable dreams, another sadly reflects over so many dreams gone undreamt. Many families find their festivities filled with celebration and joy, while others join hands around dinner tables forevermore missing a chair. For some of us, the greatest gift received this Christmas came at a countless cost to so many. As our hearts swell with love, gratitude, and joy, they ache with sorrow at our donor families' losses. Christmas is bittersweet. It is the best of days, it is the worst of days. With peace, love, and gratitude, John D., Adam's Heart recipient.
A couple of memories I have being with you and Lynn in those days. Again, I think it was also Dr. Cardinal as well as Kristen Dupuis, who happened to be doing year-end work or something where she wasn't paying attention in terms of she wasn't supervising on the floor, but she remembers the parade of Adam's friends coming all that week. And I grinned at that. I'm glad that the supervisors and give those nurses top marks, for that. And you clearly had something that you wanted to say to each one. And in my typical impulsive thing, I thought we were done and I would head out at each one and then you would turn and you would say your message, and then Dr. Cardinal hadn't really met anyone on the other side of this great canyon between the two sides of the organ donor and recipient. Kristen Dupuis, I just thought that, who are these nutty people coming, to kind of bridge this gap. And then also at Adam's work, I heard some news stories about Adam and how special he was. And I know he had so much learning disabilities with respect to the cumulative effect on the seizures. And yet, the boss was just amazing, Joel, in talking about, him at the cache and, he would go to him and multitask. And it was genuine, it was real, and it was good. There was also a moment in the parking lot where I had very deliberately avoided looking at or even going anywhere near the 22nd floor. And you asked me in the parking lot, where did Adam live? And I just went, I remember taking a really deep breath and we turned around and they said, there. And I might have said how hard that is for me. And you just put your hand on my shoulder and that was it. So I have some very fond memories of the daytime. The only ones that we missed, I'm sure we're going to talk about the nighttime cafe at the diner there, but we did miss because it hadn't happened yet was the paramedics, where of course the, crazy donor dad who wants to meet the paramedics who gave me and you the most extraordinary gift because, they resuscitated Adam and made organ donation possible because Adam got to the hospital alive where he had to be. And of course, they did that not for organ donation reasons, they did that to save Adam's life. And that got me to get on the plane, the red eye, to get to Ottawa, to get to the hospital, to have the most precious 36 hours with my son. So I wanted to thank them. And again, they were just speechless. There were a few guys crying. And again, nobody had done that. And it just, again, I felt somehow Adam was just pushing me and us to do all of that.
My head was spinning a little as you were describing that. And, we set out with this podcast to talk about organ donation, but there's something in those messages that is really resonating with me at this moment in time. Maybe it's because of the moment we're in this world. People take what they do for granted. And like those guys, those paramedics, it was just, they're just doing their job.
Mhm.
Yeah, but what they did was life-changing for somebody.
Mhm.
And I'm sure they didn't mean for that to be the case, but damn, those days when you're not happy with what you're doing, just, you know, it's a wonderful life, and it wouldn't be so wonderful without each of you.
I told your story and Adam's story to a whole group of first year going from college paramedic students who were just having lunch, and I crashed their lunch, and we were doing a table over at community forum day, and they were all wearing, they wear as students there, their yellow jackets.
Yeah.
So I just went up to them and I said, "This is why I'm here, and I want each of you to know this." And so who is this man interrupting our lunch? But they all listened. They all listened.
Yeah.
And I said, you said, "You're in a wonderful vocation. You're in a wonderful career."
And the other thing that I was thinking about is I learned from my mom. My mom, who's been gone for a few years, quite a number of years now, but she never went to a tea party or received a letter from someone or had a neighbor drop off a letter or whatever, or a pie, without writing a thank you note. And I never thought about it just becoming instilled, and I don't write thank you notes. I apologize to all the people who probably deserve one, but I certainly say thank you. And man, if there's one thing you can take from this too, if you don't care about organ donation, you don't care about anything else you talk about, just
Yes.
just be grateful. Anyway, enough of my preaching for now. But it was reflecting on that as you were speaking. So another place that I wanted to go, and really it was because of the people I wanted to meet. I really wanted to meet the people that were Adam's best friends. And so Rick suggested the best place to meet them is at their favorite hangout, the Elgin Street Diner. And Rick had told me what his typical order was, which I think was a milkshake and was it
Club sandwich, milkshake. Yeah.
And so that's what we ordered, of course. And so Lynn and I and Rick were there, and I know Kyler,
Westwick,
Sierra,
Sierra and Ashley.
right? And so, and of course, at one point we were hinting around whether, because Lynn's a nurse, as we've talked about, whether they would like to listen to Adam's heart. And a little bit of reluctance at first, except from Kyler, who jumped at the opportunity. And I think she kind of looked at everybody and said, "Well, I will." And it was a pretty extraordinary moment for me as well.
I loved looking at their face as they listened to the heart. That was just the best, and that it was happening at the diner. And by the time we did the checkout, all three did say yes. They wanted to listen. Yeah.
The other, for me, extraordinary thing that took place that weekend that Lynn and I visited Ottawa is it gave me a chance to spend some time with Suzanne. And I hadn't met Lindsay. We hadn't met Lindsay previous to that as well. Because at the transplant games, David and Lauren and Suzanne and Mike were there, but Lindsay was not. I'm pretty sure that's correct.
That's correct.
Yeah. So we had the chance, we had dinner, and actually, I'll say it wrong, but grandmare and grandpa were there as well, Suzanne's parents. So that was pretty cool. And at one point, Suzanne took us and showed us her beautiful rock garden, and it's more than just a rock garden, but this beautiful garden that she's created, and with a lot of mementos in honoring Adam and remembering Adam. And then she took me to Adam's room, and it was all pretty cool stuff. And she showed me this ring that was Adam's favorite ring. And as we've probably discovered, I'm pretty sure through this podcast, Adam was a pretty big Batman fan, a pretty big superhero fan. And Suzanne gave me that ring. It didn't take me long to have it refitted, and I don't take it off very much since that day, because they're, unbeknownst to him, they're in my opinion, there's no greater superhero. Yeah, I don't think he set out to be one, but boy, so my idol, and yeah, that was a big weekend.
I want to talk about one of the things in the letter that, again, I was worried about was I felt that I had to honor Adam, and I was so proud of him. And of course, we've talked earlier about the gender part of the journey. And I felt like I was betraying Adam again, knowing that there would be some things. I probably shouldn't put anything in the letter because Adam was going to get it across the table, approved. But I did talk about hockey and all that Adam learned in the crease in life. And of course, it was as Rebecca, and it was the girls' hockey and stuff. And I felt a little, I had to say sorry, Adam, I didn't tell him that. But the other thing that Suzanne, I think, had more concern about, and it was just very genuine, I had less on this, was to tell that part of the story. And even afterwards, even in getting to know you, to being somewhat aware of the hurt out there, the hate, discrimination. The poor guy's got just a heart. His chest is big. He doesn't need any grief. We don't need any zealots or anybody picketing at his door. So that was less of a concern of mine, that piece of it. And Suzanne, just out of not wanting to burden you, and yet we had a good conversation about that, about whether that indeed was ever an issue for you.
It's interesting, and no, it wasn't. It's really interesting because as I thought about it when we first talked about it, and I don't remember when I noticed it, when it sunk in. I remember talking to people about it, telling Lynn and other, and even very good friends of ours who are from the LGBTQ community, but I don't remember when it dawned on me. It was just that was the identity of my donor, but it certainly didn't ever concern me.
Yeah, that part of the gender journey was important for us to hear that was good. That was good for you.
It's been a very successful return to our national championship for Quebec's Lauren Mann. Her team from Montreal has played wonderfully this week and are in the thick of the playoff chase. We first met her in Moose Jaw back in 2015, proudly representing her province as a Scotties rookie. Last year, she had hoped to defend that provincial title. However, as her team reached the playoffs at the Quebec Scotties, Lauren received a phone call that would change her life. Her younger brother, Adam, had died suddenly at the age of 22 of an epileptic seizure. When Lauren's team won Quebec this year, she knew how special this Scotties would be. You see, John lives in Welland, Ontario, about a 20-minute drive from St. Catharines. And all week long, John has been here in the Meridian Centre cheering on Team Quebec. And in a way, Adam has been too. The two families have become very close, brought together by a brave young man that John never met, but will forever be a part of him. Here in St. Catharines, Lauren Mann has that red heart on her sleeve, symbolic of making our National Curling Championship. And in the stands is another heart that means so much more.
All right. What do you want to talk about next?
Well, let's talk about the Habs, the curse of my son, who was this Carey Price fan. If it wasn't Batman, it was Carey Price, and it was the Habs. And so I'm an Ottawa Senators fan, and we had this thing back and forth. And what do I discover? One of the very first things about this guy that has my son's heart I don't know. How did I first discover it? Was the
I-
visit to the basement
I
at
think so.
at Welland
I think
on the
so.
day that I listened to the heart, and he takes me down, and the man cave down there, he's got this. If it's not Hamilton Tiger Cats, and that's not my team in the CFL, it's the Red Black, but I can live with that. I said, no, no, no. I might have even said those words down there. I said, and there he was, Carey Price, the Habs, and that was your team, and it seemed appropriate. I mean, of course it would seem appropriate. It was just perfect. One of my favorite pictures in the book is his 22nd, and turned out to be his last birthday. Was we're at a bar, and he's got his Habs jersey on, and I've got my Sens jersey on, and I do believe the Sens won 1-0 in that game. I could look it up, but it was a great night. And Adam was not supposed to be doing too much drinking. We were trying to monitor things, and I went to the bathroom at one time, preparing, thinking, settle the bill, and this third beer, tall beer, in front of him, waiting when he got back, and I said, okay. I think we had to see the new doctor the next day. He says, no, I'm not drinking. And I kind of went, I did a little, nonverbal over to him. So I said, hey, the boys had some hardship here. So, and it was some time down the road that this Ottawa Senator fan didn't need to have jerseys in his closet. And I said, I think I know who is going to get this jersey.
That was another pretty extraordinary day, the day you gave me that jersey. So let's back up and talk a little bit about that. So pre-transplant days, when you're going through the process of being listed and everything's getting approval, they also send some recommendations and messages that you should start preparing, just getting things in order for your end of life preparations, just in case. And for someone who had at that point really hadn't considered my mortality much, but I just didn't want to think about it. I was the golden attitude guy. I was positive. I spent much of my career teaching people goal setting and positivity. So I said, what I'm going to do is write a list of things to do, to focus on when I survive, not if I die. And that's where the list came from. I just scribbled out, it was December 1st. I was listed November 25th. December 1st, I wrote the list. It's post-transplant goals / to-do list. And I just kind of wrote down the first 5 or 6 things that came to mind. Some were fairly mundane. Of course, be an actor and get an agent, become an actor, and a couple other things that were sort of personal items, not a big deal. The last thing I thought, I should keep the promise to my cardiologist, Dr. Heather Ross, who always says, test your limits. I said, okay, I got to put a stretch test your limits goal on there. And I said, I'm going to run 10K in under 60 minutes, which was pretty crazy at the time because I'd never done it before transplant. I don't know why I thought I would do it after, but anyhow, back to the actor story. So now I've decided I'm going to be an actor. So I started looking for film productions being done by some of the schools like Ryerson, Sheridan. And I saw this Niagara College from Welland was filming a short movie. I said, well, that's pretty cool. One day we were doing a shoot off site and Andrew, I should say, offered to drive me there. And as we're driving, he was just making conversation, said, probably because here's this 50-something over guy just becoming an actor. Why are you in this student film? Why are you becoming an actor? So I told him about the list. And I just saw his ears perk up and said, well, what else is on the list? And I could see the creative juices flowing in his director's mind. And I told him, and he instantly focused on the run 10K in 60 minutes. One thing led to another. That's where it was the impetus for the documentary A Racing Heart. And one of the great things and the opportunities, of course, with it being in Ottawa, is that Rick and Suzanne and some of the rest of the clan and my family waited for me at the finish line. And
A couple of Adam's friends.
And a couple of Adam's friends, that's right. I'd forgotten that. And it was at that time that Rick presented me with the Habs jersey, which was a pretty special gift.
And I have to confess that I always cheer for Carey Price and the Ottawa Senators. Yes, that was something to see you come in. I guess I was in my donor dad mode, even though I think that's such an unfair, given how close we are in actual age. Probably an older brother. A donor brother mode should be the true adage there. But to see you come up there on the 5, on the 10K, it was just pretty special moment. I give you a hug and to see the delight, the tiredness, the exhaustion, but again, that competitive spirit was right apparent. I always went back to your handle there, the golden attitude that came right from the get-go. It trumped everything. It made me tolerate the Habs. It made me, tolerate the Ticats, but it was just zest, this yes to life, and they obviously you're dying. That's a part of it, but it was so clear that you had this free. It's not because yeah, my son's heart. It's just who you are and how you live and your attitude. As you say, your mom taught you, the thank you notes, and it was so clear in all the messages and our time together, and so it's a friendship. Suzanne talked early about life's plan, and I said, "Mom, couldn't I just befriend this guy without without the organ part? Can we just kind of go and run around that?" And I said, life's plan. It's just not to be. It has to be this way, and it should be significant for us that you've come to put a face and a story and a life to this entity,
And likewise.
Go Sens, go.
Oski wee wee.
2 minutes. 2 minutes to be a registered donor. To save up to 8 lives. Can you imagine that I would have buried or cremated my son's organs and not have this man beside me? That's because Adam, as Rebecca Adam at 16 said, "Sure, I'd do that." And I go to young high school clubs and they all proudly show me their health cards. And sometimes I say it's a driver's license, but some kids don't drive at 16, it's a health card. And it's so important. We'll line up all night for a new apple that will die on us in 6 months, and we won't take 2 minutes to save 8 lives. 90% of people in Ontario support organ donation. Guess how many are registered as donors?
Fewer than 30%.
30%. The gap. Yeah, I believe in that. It's not a religious thing. It's not a philosophy thing for maybe 1% of the population. I haven't got around to it. I don't want to think about dying. Life's too fast. And I do a lot of donor advocacy at tables, and people just get all sheepish and heads go to the ground, and I haven't done it. Do it. 2 minutes. And it's the greatest gift, remarkable. I just can't imagine that we couldn't be here tonight because I had it honored. And the second most important thing is tell your loved ones. Because had we said no that night, they would not have done it. They do not do it even though they know the wishes of the person. They will not go around the family. And that gets to be a problem because that's the worst time for the family. They're in tragedy. If we didn't know the wishes, it's so hard to make the right decision. So it's 2 things: register and tell your loved ones. so they know what you want.
And even the stories of that weekend, it's a divergent weekend, really convergent and divergent in its emotions and stuff. Certainly, when I got my life back and they lost such an important one. But yeah, it was pretty special to have them there, and it's humbling, frankly, to see their gratitude for what I'm doing to try to honor their son in any way I can, when really all the immense gratitude is from me and my family for what they've given me.
It sounds like you've got a great heart.
I sure do.
John, congratulations on your run.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
John Dickhout raced his first 10K this past weekend to honor 22-year-old Adam Prashaw, the donor of his new heart.